Hello and welcome back to my channel and to my series where I talk about Final Fantasy VII. This video is the second part of my mini-series where I go in depth about our favorite non-playable members of Avalanche. Last time I talked about Jesse, and next time I'll talk about Wedge. Since Biggs got second in the poll, this video is all about him. The development of his character, design, personality, abilities, his life, and what his inclusion in Rebirth means. Before I go any further, here's the official spoiler warning. I will be talking about some major plot points from both Remake and Rebirth that involve Biggs, so if you haven't played the games, I recommend playing them before watching this video. There will also be some parts of this video where I will be speculating a lot. Please keep in mind that we don't have the full story yet, so I could be very wrong with my theories, so it's okay to take what I say with a grain of salt. Please feel free to share your theories in the comments as I love seeing those. And with all that out of the way, let's begin. When doing the remake project, the devs, under the direction of Tetsuya Nomura, decided to develop Jesse, Biggs, and Wedge's characters. This was to bring more weight and emotion to the tragedy on the plate. To achieve this, the scenario writer Kazushige Nojima used the same personalities he originally came up with for these characters, including Biggs, that couldn't be fully portrayed in the OG due to technological limitations of the time. For the re-trilogy, he's voiced by Gideon Emery. His experience with recording was very interesting because the animation wasn't ready by then, so his main focus was timing and not being a frame over. He also talked about how he was comfortable being a side character instead of a main lead because it felt fresh, and he enjoyed the fun banter between Biggs, Wedge, and Jesse. I think he did a very fantastic job with delivering the lines naturally without us realizing that the animation wasn't done yet. I also think he did such an amazing job with bringing that chill but playful vibe out of Biggs through his vocal performance. Another fun fact from the development process, there is unused concept art of his room for Remake. I'm not sure where they would have used this, but I find it interesting that it exists. And I do know that we did see Jesse's room and then also outside of Wedge's house, I believe, so it's very interesting. For the OG, he was designed by Tetsuya Nomura, and for Remake, he was redesigned by Roberto Ferrari. He's 25 years old, has a lean build, tan skin, gray eyes in the OG, light brown in Remake, short swept back dark brown hair, it's black in Remake, and some light stubble. In Remake, he wears a red bandana, an olive shirt, a leather harness, a black belt, and a brown belt, a pouch on his hip, dark green cargo shorts, armored boots, brown fingerless gloves, a black undershirt, black knee pads, and a gold hoop earring on his right ear. His weapon is a handgun. I think his design is really smart and fits his character. He is focused on his work for Avalanche, and the practicality of what he wears fits this. His bandana also works well with matching Wedge and Jesse since they work as a team and have been together since they were kids. So it brings a sense of cohesion and that they belong together as a group. Olive green is his signature color, and the meaning of that color really fits him as it is a warm green, giving the sense of groundedness and calm. It's a color that's connected to nature, which fits with the mission that Avalanche stands for. It's also a color that is usually used in military uniforms, which I believe his outfit is inspired by, at least in a utilitarian sense. The color also means resilience, which Biggs definitely developed, as well as balance, which does describe his more level-headed nature. He is also an orphan, and orphans are naturally very resilient considering the circumstances of their lives. I love the inclusion of his earring because to me it's an indicator of his playful and fun nature and shows his subtle rebelliousness. The handgun being his weapon is also really smart because it's practical and not flashy, which suits him. In Rebirth, his outfit is a little different. Instead of the bandana, he seems to be wearing a red turtleneck. He's wearing an olive green jacket with a high collar and a black V-neck shirt over the turtleneck. He's still sporting in his colors, but his style is more incognito, which makes sense because he has to keep a low profile since he's on the wanted posters. But he's doing so without betraying his loyalties to what he stands for. And I believe the red turtleneck is to still show that he belongs with Jesse and Wedge as a group and is also paying homage to them. As far as his personality is concerned, he's really complex. He's chill, rational, kind, positive, and very playful. On the surface, he seems confident, put together, and takes pride in his role in Avalanche. But underneath that, He's actually an overthinker, a perfectionist, and can get to a point where he ruminates so much over his guilt for his actions that he unravels a bit and jumps to conclusions about what could happen out of worry for his friends and his comrades. He also values cleanliness and has a tendency to deep clean to relieve stress. I think that this makes a lot of sense considering his overthinking and perfectionistic nature. I know a lot of people like that who do clean as a sort of coping mechanism, as it gives a sense of control. He serves as a foil to Barrett since he approaches situations rationally and with a plan instead of going in guns blazing. I think that this was very needed to keep the group more balanced and not only keep Barrett from getting them into more trouble, but also actually execute plans optimally. Biggs was definitely an invaluable member of their team in that regard. He was so opposite to Barrett, in fact, that he was opposed to bombing the reactors at first. He's also selfless, which made him a great teacher when he worked at the Leaf House prior to joining Avalanche. He was very loved there by both students and his colleagues. As a former teacher myself, I can totally see how he would be a great teacher because he's patient, calm, but also firm, which are very needed qualities to manage behavior in a class setting, especially with young kids. In his free time, he helps the neighborhood watch to protect the people in the slums and to also teach them self-defense. He watches over Jesse and Wedge. He's definitely the big brother of the group, though I do low-key ship him with Jesse, I'm not gonna lie. He grew up with Jesse and Wedge, but took his time warming up to both Barrett and Cloud. He eventually came to trust Barrett, and eventually came around to Cloud too, when Cloud took an interest in Jesse's background. He realized that Cloud wasn't cold like he initially thought he was. I think it's a good quality to have your trust be earned, but he is also willing to change his mind about others when getting to know them. I think he's a total green flag in my opinion. He is also the strategist of their cell in Avalanche. His other skills are hacking, firearm handling, shooting with accuracy, modding weapons, and he is a charismatic and patient teacher. Now moving on to his life. He was born in 1982 and was brought to the Sector 5 orphanage as a baby. Since no one knew his name, they called him X until they could come up with a suitable name, but he ended up liking it and kept using it until he moved out. He usually helped the teachers and only sometimes joined the other kids to play. This is all documented in Aerith's story in Traces of Two Pasts, since she played with these orphans and knew him when he was called X. One day, one of Elmira's husband's business partners, Meguro, brought his family over. Marcellus, his son, was an entitled rich brat with insecurities. He ended up insulting the house and the orphans in front of them. So X naturally snapped and beat him up in front of Aerith. I'm definitely going to make videos about Aerith's story in Traces of Two Pasts, so definitely stay tuned for that. When he was about 13 years old, he moved out and started going by the name Biggs. He worked with another orphan named John in a scrapyard. Their job was to find machine parts, get rid of the rust, and sell the parts for repairs. This is probably where he started developing those skills for modding weapons. Eventually, he saved enough money to buy the Sector 5 house, and that was when it became the Leaf House. He then became a teacher until he passed his torch to Miss Folia after teaching her everything he knew. That was when he joined Avalanche, with Jesse and Wedge to be a pain in the ass to Shinra, not so much to bomb reactors. They all met Tifa, which I talked about more in my video about Jesse, but I will also talk in depth once I make videos about Traces of Two Pasts. But please watch the video about Jesse if you haven't yet. When Barrett joined, it took a while for him to warm up to him, but eventually he became loyal to him and followed him when he left the Avalanche factions and formed his own independent cell. When they were finally able to execute the mission of bombing Reactor 1, Biggs helped Jesse with hacking the doors. It was then that he told her that he was glad that Cloud was a professional that could help them. When they escaped through the tunnels, he commented on smelling bad and wanted to shower. This is his cleanliness quirk coming out, which could also be psychological since he's feeling guilty about the damage the bombing created, and he wants to feel clean in some sort of way, and the only way he can think of is literally cleaning himself. While they were taking the train, he checked on Cloud to make sure that he was okay. I think this is a great character moment to show how much he thinks of others. And at this point, he hadn't even warmed up to Cloud yet. The next day, he was at Beginner's Hall with Wedge when Cloud and Tifa found them. He convinced Cloud to help the neighborhood watch, and in return he modded his weapon. He then asked Cloud to get rid of the monsters on Scrap Boulevard and promised to spread the word about him so he could get more work as a merc. When Cloud came back, he confirmed with him that he spread the word and asked how his modded weapon felt. This definitely shows how reliable he is as a person, but also that he does follow through. Later that day, at their Avalanche meeting about bombing Reactor 5, he came up with plans A through E. Later, he joined Cloud and Jessie to go to her house topside and had Wedge ride on the motorcycle with him. He joined Wedge and Jessie for pizza, while Cloud stole her father's Shinra ID card. Biggs was sharp on the uptake here and knew that she was going for a reason having to do with Avalanche. On the way to Sector 7-6 Annex, Biggs told Cloud about Jessie's past and asked him to not talk about it with anyone else. This was when he came to trust Cloud. Then he planned their distraction at the Annex so that Jessie could steal the blasting agent. He also provided support by providing cover for Cloud. When the Avalanche cell showed up, Biggs explained to Cloud that there were other Avalanche cells and how Barrett's was considered too extreme. He also explained that these cells were supposedly making deals with Wutai. When they landed in the slums via parachute, Biggs returned home and swept outside to deal with his overthinking about the next mission. Cloud found him and reminded him to rest, and he thanked him for the reminder. I think that this is a sweet moment because Biggs' tendency to deal with his anxiety is a very relatable thing, and he needed a reminder to take care of himself. And this is a great character moment for Cloud as he notices this, and definitely it's not as cold and stoic as he pretends to be. The next day, he left early to secure the entrance to Reactor 5. When Cloud, Tifa, and Barrett arrived, he was surprised to see Cloud and Tifa when he was expecting Jessie and Wedge. Barrett asked for a report, so he told them that things were crazy topside after some terrorists reportedly jumped off a train. Because of this pandemonium, it was easy for him to secure their route. He then asked about Jessie and Wedge and was relieved to hear that they were safe. He thanked Cloud for stepping up, complimented them for distracting Shinra, and gave them grappling guns. Tifa then asked him to make sure the area around the reactor was clear of people to prevent deaths, so he left to do so. They really were making an effort to not hurt innocent people, which makes what Shinra did to make the bombings worse, to make Avalanche look worse, super diabolical. Clearly, they don't care about human lives, which is very typical of a corporation. Just saying. Later, when only Tifa and Barrett returned from the mission, he was surprised, but knew that Cloud was strong and could handle being on his own. It was him who told Barrett that Corneo's goons were looking for him. The next time we see Biggs is during the battle on the plate. When he noticed that Cloud had shown up, he decided to clear a path before he could come to quote-unquote steal the show. When Cloud finally got to him, he was already badly wounded and surrounded by whispers. He was relieved to hear that Cloud and Wedge had made it, but he knew that he was a goner. He asked Cloud to promise that their fight would not be in vain, and then said that he would fight a little longer. He told Cloud that he was a good person and asked him to visit the Leaf House on his behalf. Cloud responded, saying that he would have to do that himself. In response, he pointed out that Cloud and the orphans had a lot in common. He put his hand on his head, wished him luck, and then took his last breath. As a former teacher myself, I think it's really sweet that he remembered his students at the Leaf House until the very end of his life, and at the same time, he cared so much about Cloud, a comrade he barely knew for a couple of days. It really shows the kind of person that he was and how much he really, really cared. Also, his intuition, because he's not quite wrong about the comment about Cloud and the orphans having a lot in common. At the end of Remake, he's lying on a bed at the Leaf House with his wounds bandaged, somehow surviving and living inside one of the realities. In Rebirth, he spends his time sneaking around since he's wanted for being a part of Avalanche. He also provides food to Elmira's house. He meets Zack and bonds with him over their stories of how they got there by something that saved them from death. During this time, he confesses his survivor's guilt and that he grapples with thoughts of what he could do with this extra time he has been given. Since he is an overthinker, this is something that haunts him, and it certainly doesn't help that his friends are all gone. Naturally, he feels lost and hollow. He also tells Zach about how Cloud is a badass merc, which confuses Zach because the person he's describing doesn't sound like the Cloud that he knew. This is significant because this is a clue that Cloud isn't acting like himself most of the time during these games. Being around Zach and his positive go-getter attitude inspires Biggs, who decides to bomb Reactor 6. However, that fails because of the lack of Mako inside the reactor. Then Shinra's troops show up and shoot and kill him. Now this is where I'm going to go into theory territory before I talk about Biggs' appearances in the main reality. A while back, I watched the dude talk about why he thinks Biggs is in Zach's reality, and I agree with what he said, that the reason that he was included was because he knew Soldier Persona Cloud, whereas Zach didn't. The devs wanted to show us that something weird is going on with Cloud and use Biggs and Zach's interactions as foreshadowing. I think they also wanted to nail home how these characters are feeling and acting in these other realities, and showing Biggs' intense survivor's guilt and itch to do something about it was an excellent choice. Biggs' death in this reality was also intentional to show that these characters that end up in these other realities are going to die soon, and in similar ways to how they did in the main reality. This was also the case for Zach in some of the divergent paths he created. Now, this is where I'm going to insert where I stand on the debate of what's going on here. I'm in the camp that these are just realities in the live stream. I don't think it's a multiverse Marvel bullshit thing. The live stream is made up of memories of the souls who are in it. I believe that Biggs did actually die on the plate in the main reality, and he landed in one of these realities created in the live stream with his memories that has been fucked up by Sephiroth's manipulation. Of course, I could be very wrong about this, and I'm okay with that. We still have yet to have part 3, and hopefully a satisfactory explanation of what is actually going on. As long as it's satisfactory and not a weird cop-out, I will take it. Either way, Biggs definitely died in this reality, which makes me believe that Zach eventually will, and we will have to say goodbye to his character. I also believe that Zach will still have a very important role to play before everything gets resolved. I don't think the devs brought him back in this capacity just for fan service. Back to Rebirth. In the main reality, during the Proto-Relic mission in Cosmo Canyon, Barrett and Tifa reminisce on the time at the bar they all decided over drinks to visit Cosmo Canyon together. During the cutscene, Biggs takes care of Jessie while she's stumbling from drinking too much. He jokingly tells her that he's cutting her off. It's interesting to see that he's still the responsible one in the group even when he's also drunk. He then talks about how the Cosmo Canyon cocktail is his favorite. Jessie points out that it's missing something. Cue Wedge, coming in just in time with Cosmo Canyon salt, which prompts the whole idea to go there together. The next cutscene, when Jessie gets on Wedge's case for calling himself a deadweight, Biggs asks Wedge if he really thinks that Jessie's being too nice. In response, she says that she is only nice to those who deserve it, and puts him in a headlock. He eventually calls Uncle and she lets go. Then he gets serious and assures Wedge that they wouldn't be there without him. In the final cutscene of that quest, he hypes Barrett up a bit to make his speech. Afterwards, he does an air fist bump and says that he's in to help Barrett stick it to Shinra. After the cutscene, Barrett talks to Tifa about how they would want them to stop living in guilt and regret. I agree that this is definitely something that Biggs would want. Then Barrett, Tifa, and Cloud all launch 3 lanterns into the sky as a memorial for Jessie, Biggs, and Wedge. Later, when Aerith sings her last note in No Promises to Keep, she releases Lifestream energy. Biggs is seen with Wedge in the audience clapping. Then he high-fives Jessie, shakes his wrist, then smiles at the camera and salutes before fading away in Lifestream energy. This, along with the song, serves as a promise that they will all meet again in the live stream. Some final thoughts. I'm so happy that Biggs' character was fleshed out in the Re-trilogy. I thought that it was smart to have him be a character with perfectionistic and overthinking tendencies, as I can relate to that, and I know several people who also relate. It was especially smart characterization since he is the strategist of their cell. I thought his inclusion in Rebirth was also smart because of these very human qualities being the most effective for the themes the devs were trying to convey with the inclusion of these realities. Ultimately, what they did with Biggs' character to flesh him out made me really like him. His balanced and chill nature was a great foil to Barrett's overzealousness and ultimately helped ground him more. I love how he acts as a big brother to the other members of Avalanche, including Cloud, and I think that his background as an orphan makes that characterization really powerful. The whole concept of found family and taking care of each other. Also, the inclusion of him being a former teacher makes me happy since I am also a former teacher and can understand him more in this way. I think that Biggs is an incredible character with amazing qualities to look up to and very relatable flaws, and it was all executed well, especially in comparison to his OG counterpart who couldn't be fleshed out due to those limitations. I believe that this was one of the best changes for this remake project, and I think that they really nailed it. Thank you so much for watching. Next time I will talk about Wedge, which I'm really excited about because he is criminally underrated. If you are interested in that video, please subscribe if you haven't yet, and click the notification bell so that you will be notified of when that will drop. Also, please leave a like and comment, as Biggs definitely needs more discussion. And this is a regular reminder to please be respectful in these comments. I will be monitoring them, and if I see anything divisive, hateful, or disrespectful to the game, devs, voice actors, and especially with each other, I will remove your comment. If you persist, I will block to ensure that this remains a safe space for fans to talk about this game. And with that, I'm off. Till next time. Bye.